Sparking Change with Gigi, a show that aims to make the world a better place by bringing together authentic minds. This show encourages each of us to be the change we wish to see in the world. Get ready to be inspired and join us on this journey to create a brighter future for all.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sparking Change with Gigi. I'm your host, Giovanna Tortellone, and today's show, we're going to be talking about finding our purpose when we go from survival to speaking. And I want to welcome Ryan Brady to the show. Welcome, Ryan. And we're going to be talking about, Ryan and I connected just because we knew that our stories are meant for people to hear. And we are both taking and having this vision of how we can help other people do the same. So you have a remarkable story. And, I brought you on because you truly bring out the best in people in your own unique way. So tell us a little bit about you, Ryan. And how did you get into this work? I mean, you're pretty young, so I'm so enthused about how you see the passion in this work at such a young age, and you're a role model for many people. So let's talk about your journey.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. I would say and this phrase, when I used to hear it all the time from other people saying it, it will always seem so cringy to me, and then I ended up being the one saying that exactly. So it's kind of ironic. But I'd say I was reborn when I was 17. It was August 30th, 2017. I was driving to school with my little brother. I was the sixth day of our senior year of high school. Everything was normal, about to start applying to colleges and that kind of thing. 7:30 in the morning, and speed limit is 25. I'm going 39. Stupid teenager. My little brother, he looks up at me. He says, "Hey, Ryan, you think you should slow down?" I say, "No, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be okay." About 10 seconds after he told me that, we go around a bend, and there's a construction truck driving over the line in the middle of the road. And if I realized if I was going the speed limit, I would have just hit the brakes, waved to the truck driver, and everything would have been fine, right? But because I was going too fast, if I would have hit the brakes, I realized I would have just skid out, and it would have been a head-on collision. I would have killed the truck driver, killed my brother, and killed myself. And anything was better than that. So I turned to the right to avoid that head-on collision from happening. But to our right, there was no road. There was an 80-foot cliff. And car goes off the cliff. We flip 6 times going down the cliff. I don't know if you, Giovanna, or anybody listening has siblings, but fortunately nothing happened to my brother physically. I don't know how I would have lived with myself if he had died. I would have felt like I'd killed him. But so he was okay, fortunately. But me sitting just 1 foot from him in the driver's seat, I broke my neck, back, wrist, elbow, collarbone, had a traumatic brain injury. I was in a coma for 1 week. And TBIs, traumatic brain injuries, are like fingerprints, right? Each one is totally unique. Mine impacted, at least the way the doctors explained it, mine impacted my long-term memory. They said it impacted the wires connecting the storage of your brain, is how they described it. It's like if you were to crunch up the wires and tear them up and that kind of thing. So I couldn't access my long-term memory. So I woke up from the coma and I'd forgotten how to speak English, which was my first language, and I'd forgotten how to walk. It's kind of funny because I had lived in Mexico the summer before this happened, and so to compensate, my brain went to my short-term memory, and I could speak Spanish, but I couldn't produce English, so I could only speak in Spanish. It's kind of funny because my parents don't speak almost any Spanish at all. They know the basics like "Hola, cómo estás? Me gusta," that kind of thing. But it was kind of funny. Fortunately, we were in California, so there was a lot of Latino nurses and that kind of thing. So it made it all work. But I would say that was definitely a big sign of me going in a direction I don't think was supposed to be the direction I was going in. And it was definitely a reframe of, hey, you know what, you gotta change some stuff up here, Ryan. This is not the right direction you're going down. You shouldn't, follow the rat race, follow the normal path that majority of people, follow. So that was, I would say, the start of this change, the survival start.
Yeah. So, again, when we have these events that occur in our life, it makes us, look at life very differently, right? First, we're glad that we're able to survive something like that. But then we take a really long look and say, okay, why did I survive? Because some people don't, right? So you ask this question, why? And then you start to get these ideas how you're meant for more. You're here for a purpose. You got that second chance. And so, yeah, let's go into like the survival. So you got the second chance. Although you had to start all over and retrain your mind to do, the basic life skills that we learn when we were a baby, you're still fine, just speaking to you from, us meeting in the past, you're so grateful. You're so humble. So it truly changed who you were at the core, like you, right? So let's talk about the changes that you saw in yourself.
Yeah, sure. So interestingly enough, at the time, my best friend was my little brother. We did everything together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now there are positives and negatives to that because and he told me years later how he felt like he was, kind of stuck to me, and it was always, Ryan and Kyler, Ryan and Kyler, Ryan and Kyler. And he was
Mm-hmm.
kind of glad that we kind of separated for a few years and didn't do
Yeah.
much together. But he said, Ryan, you were totally different after that happened. And I think it was probably tough for my family too, because they're like, who the heck is this person? Because I had a totally different personality. I was
Right.
very kind of shy and introverted at the time. Um, and so I would say absolutely the brain injury changed my personality. And I didn't really think about, like, I didn't get so, I guess, spiritual with it until probably 2 or 3 years after it happened, where I really started to kind of dive into it and think about it and kind of think and ask that question that you said of like, why didn't this kill me? Um, I know about a month after I was in physical therapy meeting with my physical therapist at the time, and she said, Ryan, did you know your C7 vertebrae, the thick one at the base of your neck, if that was 1 more millimeter compressed, you'd be paralyzed from the neck down. And at that moment, I realized every single thing in my life that I have, the relationships, the experiences was all 1 millimeter away from, not existing in the same way it does. So I think the appreciation definitely came from that. Like even the most horrible experiences, at least I can still have those standing up. And I think it's definitely a thing that you don't appreciate until you've lost it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe like a lot of people when they go through a breakup, maybe they feel that kind of way as well, right? Um, but you don't realize and you don't appreciate, or at least me, I can't speak for everyone, but I didn't realize and appreciate the ability that I could think, leg move, and my leg would move. And that's just like a natural thing that obviously when you think and you want your leg to move, it moves.
Right.
Um, but then I didn't have that. I was like, oh my gosh, that I really like being able to operate my legs. That's a pretty cool thing to do. Um, so that definitely got me thinking and appreciating a lot more on a different level. And I also considered what if something had happened to my brother, right? Because that was another reason of like that would have felt way worse than any physical injury. Imagine if I'd woke up from my coma and my parents told me, Ryan, your brother's dead. Like I don't, that would have hurt a lot
Yeah.
because I would have had to live with the guilt for the rest of my life that he had died because of something I did that he told me not to do, and I did it, and he died. Um, Now I think because there was only this much space between us, and that physical destruction could have absolutely been him. It made me really think of like, well, why wasn't it? And then I think the only answer to that is, well, there's something spiritual there, right? It happened the way it was meant to happen because it's to better you and make you greater and strengthen you. Um, and it wasn't until I started thinking about those things that I started kind of unpacking the spirituality of it and what it could be, what it could mean, and those kinds of things. I hope that kind of answers your question, Giovanna.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful because you're looking at it from another perspective, right? You're giving this event in your life that you don't become the victim of it, but you open up your heart to say, again, this is the spiritual part. Like, okay, I made it. There's a purpose why I made it. I need to do something on this earth, right? And yes, you learned, okay, we're not going to be driving fast anymore, right? That's like the underlining, you know, basic thing that we can take away from that. But it was so much more than just the accident. It opened up for you to appreciate life so much more. Like even for me, going through my trauma, right? We look at life like there's a job we need to do here. We need to, I got a second chance because I need to give back. And this is the work that you do now. I mean, and do you mind if you tell the audience your age?
Yeah. So at the time we're recording this, it's what, April 1st, 2025, and I'm 24 years old.
Okay. So at 24 years old, this happened to you 3 years ago, you mentioned?
I was 17, so about
Or
7 years ago
17.
now. Yeah.
So you've opened yourself now to understanding the spiritual essence of you, right?
Yeah.
Following your intuition and listening to your heart and helping others from a whole different view. So let's talk about that, like how um, you had demonstrated, obviously there's some faith when you entered into the spirituality end of it, that there's another side of you that leans on towards the faith of knowing that, okay, this is what you need to do here. This is how you have to help people. Can we go into that, like
Of course.
following your heart and how you're taking your story now to help others?
Sure. Yeah. So I would say, um, I was being interviewed by someone else, and I won't say his name just for privacy. Want to respect him there. But he asked me, Ryan, when did you get over the imposter syndrome to give a TEDx talk? And he said, was it like when you applied? Was it when you were on stage? Was it when you got off stage? And I said, it wasn't when I applied for the first TEDx talk that I gave. It wasn't when I was in the interview. It wasn't even when they gave me an acceptance email of, hey, you've been selected to give a TEDx talk. It wasn't even when I was on the TEDx stage. It wasn't even when I got off the TEDx stage. It wasn't even when my TEDx talk, the first one, went up on the TEDx YouTube channel. It was 6 months later when I watched it because I got on the stage, said the first two words of my script, then blanked, forgot the entire script, had to improv the entire thing. Didn't end up being as difficult as I thought because it was a personal story, so I knew it pretty well. Um, but 6 months later, when I was watching the talk, I scrolled down and I started reading the comments, and there was other people that had also had brain injuries that were, in the hospital saying, I need to see this, saying, oh my gosh, thank you so much for being up here. And I realized, like, I would have been selfish to have gotten off stage at that time. And there's a certain feeling that it gave me of like, oh my gosh, there's people out there that are listening to me, that need to hear me, that I wouldn't have known were waiting to hear what I had to say from my experience. It's like, I better have gotten an ROI on this experience. If there's anything, if anybody can learn from this experience, I would like them to learn. And that realization of knowing there's that specific super niche target audience that listened to that TEDx talk that needed to hear that TEDx talk that I had to say. Um, it's such a powerful and fulfilling feeling that I always say, like, if that could be bottled up into a drug, it'd be the most popular drug on the planet. And it's like, okay, that's why I'm here. Um, and now, with the business that I run now, giving other people that feeling of getting them booked for the TEDx talk, and then that's what they want. But what I'm really doing for them is getting them that feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm a leader. There's people out there that need to hear from me, that I need to help, that I need to guide, and I didn't even realize they were there. This is just how I found them. And so the car accident absolutely led to kind of that path, because I would not have given my first TEDx talk if I hadn't gone through that car accident. I would have be living a totally different life. And I always look back at it, and I always think, like, if it were 10 seconds before I was about to drive off that cliff, and if, God or spirit or universe, source, call it whatever you want, that higher power were to say, "Hey, Ryan, about 10 seconds from now, this is what's going to happen. You're going to break your neck, your back, your wrist, your elbow. You'll be almost paralyzed. You're going to be recovering for like 2 years of your life. Everything else is going to go on pause. But after those 2 years, this is what's going to happen. Do you still want to do this?" I would say, yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
And I think it's definitely a very an experience that a lot of things don't seem difficult compared to that, right? Like if it's
of course.
you're sitting in a hospital bed, you can't speak your own language and you can't walk. It's like, is taking a sales call that hard? Is, you know, being 18 months into a business and there's a month where you have 10 employees to pay and you have no money in the bank account, and then the next 3 days you have to figure out how to make $20,000. Like, is that hard? Or like compared to that, it's a different level of kind of difficulty or a different perception of difficulty. And yeah, so I'm very grateful for that happening, because just the way I a lot of things seem much less difficult now than at what point I made them out to be, if that kind of makes sense.
Of course, because you look at life from a perspective of, what's it's not what's in it for me, but how can I
Sure.
serve now, right? Because I was served, so by having a second chance. So now you're looking at it from a whole different mindset, right? And what I love about your story is that you didn't become a victim. You didn't look at it as poor Ryan. My life is done, right? What gave you the desire, the motivation to say, I'm going to get better. I'm doing this because I'm going to get back to where I was. What drove you? What was the driver in that, when you had to do all that? I mean, physical therapy for how long?
It was
Like
about,
three
well,
years?
first it was 6 months. It was 6 months, and then I had to have my elbow operated on, and then figure out how to bend it again. So it's, the total is about a year of physical therapy.
Mm, okay.
Um, but I would say the answer is not as it's a very logical answer to this question. I know that might not be what you're looking for, um, but the
It's your
reason,
experience.
and
So how did
yeah,
your experience? Yeah.
yeah. So it was so because I had lost access to majority of my long-term memory temporarily. Fortunately, it all came back, but
Yeah.
after a year and a half. In the moment that I was in the hospital, and my mom used to make fun of me all the time for this, and I would laugh with her about this. I would always call the hospital the hotel, because I felt like we were on vacation. I always had a friend with me, the nurses. I always had someone, bringing me food in bed. I even had a nurse coming and washing my feet. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy! I love this. This is some kind of luxury vacation." Because everything that I understood as normal, I just forgot about. And so I was really kind of experiencing that with the novelty of a child. And it was the coolest thing in the world. And I actually really enjoyed it, which, looking back at it, a lot of people might be like, what? No, I would not want that to happen to me. Um, so I'd say the drive to recover was just because I didn't know anything was different. I didn't know, and I wasn't comparing it to anything. It was just a novel, cool, interesting experience that was fun for me. Um, and I didn't even know what was like to walk, and kind of forgot about all that kind of stuff. So it didn't feel like I was losing anything, because I had nothing to compare it to. So it was just part of the journey. I was like, all right, like I'm gonna go back to school. We're just on a quick vacation. Within a couple months, I'll be back in school. Um, that's what my mind was thinking at the time. So that was personally my experience, was I just forgot everything to compare it to.
Do you think that helped you to heal faster?
100%,
Yeah.
110%, absolutely. Because if it was the me today, it would be a very different kind of experience, because I'd feel so much that I'm losing all this kind of stuff, but I didn't feel like I was losing anything. I felt like I was only gaining. Um, So I think absolutely that kind of ignorance helped me recover 100%, 110%.
Beautiful. So you must have probably had a faster recovery than most, but you also, younger, so you had hopefully the strength to overcome it quick, faster. Wow. So what was the turning point for you that realized that you can inspire others with your story? Was it the what you just mentioned when you looked at the comments of that first TED Talk that you had
Yeah,
to
100%.
realize
Because before
your
before it was just about me, right? And then when I saw there's and this was I was like 19 years old at the time or 20 years old that for me to see like hundreds of random people on the internet that I have never met before watching and it was a really like it was sharing my most intimate, vulnerable, weakest, most intimate experience that is like the last thing you share with anybody when you're meeting them. It was like taking that and putting it in front of everyone and getting that kind of response. I was like, oh my gosh, I was not expecting that. And I didn't think I was ever going to watch that TEDx talk. And so I think that moment for me was it was a very, very big and significant moment.
It's like an eye opener to realize how
Big time.
much we can affect others through our stories. And, this is why I do what I do myself is that this is also part of, I mean, I believe it's part of our healing journey. Because when we speak about it and we are helping others, we're also helping ourselves internally, right? Because we're like conveying that we made it, like to our other self, to give our other self like an applaud, like, hey, you've been through a lot and you've made it. Just by lifting others up, we're lifting ourselves up. And that's like really the fulfilling part that gives us the joy of saying, we didn't go through all this hardship for no reason. We went through it because we learned lessons from it, but now we're sharing what we learned and also helping others lift others up. So I commend you for what you're doing at such a young age to discover this gift that you have. And you work really, really hard. I mean, your calendar is booked from, we just said it today, from, 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night sometimes, and you keep going. And this is how I feel. And I want to see if you feel the same way, because once you find your purpose and what you're here to do, does it feel like work to you, what you're doing?
No, but it never felt like work. Um, I mean, when I was working a job for someone else, it felt like work. Um, but when I say work, it wasn't that I didn't like doing it. I was working for a different company, being a high ticket salesperson and then got promoted to be to kind of head of sales of the company and I was learning so much. And with every, thing that would feel like work for that company that I was working for a couple years ago now, um, I was learning so much and I just felt like I was getting my return from the work I was doing and it wasn't money. I mean, of course I was making some money, but the return was me learning and so it didn't feel like work because I realized every day I was doing it, I was gaining skills, I was becoming a more well-equipped, skillful person, right? Entrepreneur, call it whatever you
Yes.
want. But like these days, it doesn't feel like work. That doesn't mean that it's like fun or easy to do, but it's like there's a deeper kind of thing to it, where it really comes from a deeper place of service. Not from my own ego or anything like that, but like my director of operations, his mom got a gnarly cancer and he had to go fly back home and he had to become the breadwinner of his house because both his mom and his mom, he had to pay for her chemo and his dad was recovering from cancer, so he couldn't work. And my business wasn't at a point that I could pay someone a salary. But I realized, like, he said, Ryan, like, I gotta leave this month and do my own thing to be able to cover my mom's chemotherapy, or stay here, keep working with what we're doing, but I'm gonna have to make the money to cover my mom's chemotherapy this month. And I saw that as like a test from the universe of like, hey, we're gonna up level you right now. You're either gonna choose to accept this or back down. And I was like, okay, challenge accepted. And I think in my mind it was, I had faith that because it was coming from a place of just such deep service, that
Yes.
there was no way it wouldn't be successful, and that I wouldn't be able to help him get the money for his mom's chemotherapy. And it all ended up okay, not in the way I expected. Like, the didn't come from the client or the other client. Like, the divine had its own way to get it. I had to figure out the what, not the how, if that makes
Yes.
sense. And kind of let go
Yes.
as far as the how. But I think that was really interesting. And then when I started learning, like, had to let go a little bit more instead of trying to control everything in the business, it a lot more started just flow to it. Um, but you got me going on a tangent now. What was your question? I don't want to go away from your question. What was it?
The question was, yeah, the story was so good. It's, how are you, you turned into letting the ego go, basically, to be of service. And you just went into the story how it's all about understanding the need of someone to help them move forward, just like we're doing with having them come on stage, right? Or seeing what their need is to help them move forward to their story. So your story, in essence, is providing the avenue for them to see themselves grow. Is essentially what you're saying. And it's the I love how you say you get to let the ego go and go into your heart space when you're working with people, whether they're working for you or you're bringing someone on stage. Here's a question that I would love for you to share with us is, obviously this transformed your life. That the incident transformed your life, how you serve people differently now. Where do you see, so tell us the impact that you see people have, because you've helped many to get on stage. What are they saying to you afterwards? What are they sharing with you?
First, I think it's like the vision I told you of that feeling in that moment of them absolutely just destroying their own imposter syndrome that they have. I'm thinking, no, who, like, I don't have a
Mm.
PhD, I don't have this, that credibility, whatever it is. Um, I talked to a client today. We got him booked, and he just delivered his TEDx talk at Texas A&M University on Sunday, like 2 days ago. And he, we've got a mastermind of the people that have already given their TEDx talks. It's called Leverage Your TEDx Talk Mastermind. Um, and he was saying, man, it actually worked. I didn't realize it. And the script we made got edited so many times. And he was telling us how, like, with every part in the script he was on track and he didn't make a mistake, and it surprised him, and he was able to, finish his TEDx talk and give it successfully, and got off stage, and he was like, wow. And he started the call, he hopped on the mastermind and said, guys, I'm now officially a TEDx speaker. And he hasn't even seen the comments yet, which is the part I'm most excited for, of what he sees come from that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got an amazing story. He's the father of six. Two of his kids are autistic, and he was sharing his story about how what he's learned about being the parent of two autistic children, and kind of guiding other parents. So when they're in the hospital and there's a doctor that says, hey, your child is autistic, they're going to go on and search YouTube, whatever, his talk will come up, right? And that's kind of the who it serves. Like, I don't have any kids yet. I couldn't serve the parent of an
Right.
autistic child to help, raise the child, but I can put the person that is an expert at that in the right place where other parents that have autistic children need to find it, right? And it's one of the most exponential things, where it's like, you talk about the amount of impact you can have, because his TEDx talk could get millions of views of parents of autistic children and it's such a deep feeling of gratitude of like, oh my God, I'm so glad that these people could be impacted. I'm so glad that they were able to see his TEDx talk, that they got to hear his message. And there's a feeling of gratitude that I was able to help make that happen. And that's the real
Yeah.
powerful thing about it. And I'm excited for once he starts seeing the comments, because I think that's going to be the most amazing part for him.
Yeah. And, you know, it's knowing, you already know the impact the person can make. They don't know it, right? They just see them going on stage. But because you went through it and you've, you know, seen it, it's a deep feeling of, I really can make a difference. And, you know, and yes, you know, I'm going to say education, like you said, has nothing to do with it. Sharing your story. Some people say, well, you know, I'm not experienced to share my story. I don't have this and I don't have that credential. But to take it from a unique perspective that we don't need to be at a high level in corporate America to share our personal stories, because this is how we truly help each other, is through, you know, showing how the resilience that you can have from going through a trauma or an event in your life, that instead of giving up, right? You didn't give up. I didn't give up. We decided that we're going to take this event in our life and use it to help others. And this is the story that we share, that we want others to share, because this is how we truly help each other to grow, to make it. You know, we can have a prescription and go to the doctor, but it's definitely not the same as sharing our stories to impact others at a deeper level. You mentioned that part of your the way you get people on stage is to help them get to the core of their story. How do you do that?
Yeah, so I think primarily it's overcoming the imposter syndrome, that they don't think they have an idea or spreading in them. But it's a pretty simple framework, at least for TEDx. But I've interviewed about 60 different TEDx organizers, and I've learned that every single person has a TEDx idea worth spreading in them. You just need a little bit of help finding it. You know, addressing something that is contrarian to a set of beliefs or a narrative that majority of people think is one way, and you explaining what's wrong with that or how could it be done better. Like, my first one was brain injuries suck. Like, that's the narrative I was going against. Like, I can almost with 100% certainty say to every single person listening, hey, if I ask you, do you want a brain injury tomorrow? I think 100% of you will say, no, thank you, I'll pass. That's kind of crazy. I don't need that. And the idea was, hey, you might not want one, but here's how, if you do end up with one, you can make it one of the best things that ever happened to you. So everybody has it. I think that's the one realization, that when you realize that everybody has that idea in them to share, it will
You know,
come.
what just came to mind is they have to believe that they have it, and you have to join your process, help them to discover that. You know, I always say we all have gifts that we can share. And some people say, you know, I can't do this and I can't do that. But it's not about what you can't do. It's about what you can do to bring out the gifts that you can share. So most people look at all the things that they can't do and say, well, I don't have anything to share. But the truth of the matter is, I believe that we all have something to share from our experiences in life, you know, and we don't see it as a gift. We look at it as something bad that happened to us, that we can just let that go. Let's not talk about it. Because you did mention something before, that you said you were vulnerable. You opened up yourself to the world. And you didn't expect to receive the feedback and the comments that you got. And when you saw that, it helped you to understand how valuable you are to this world, and why you got that second chance. So to help others feel that way, I think it is the best job anybody can have,
And I
right?
think that
Because
I'll tell a story to communicate that, because I was given, and it had been a couple years already. This was, I think, a year ago. It was last year. I was speaking at an event in Atlanta, and I only had five minutes to give the gig. Like, it was a very short speaking gig,
hmm
and there's about 300 people in the audience, and they're all people like working on building their personal brands. And I told the story of the car accident, the brain injury, and recovering. And I get off stage, and after, when everyone is leaving, there's a mom and her son that comes up to me, and the son's probably like 14 years old, and the mom says, "Ryan, thank you so much for sharing your story. My son had a brain injury 1 year ago when he was like 14 years old, and he was really struggling with recovering. You were a signal of hope for him, that he's going to be okay, that he could be okay, because there was nobody out there for him to look to and think, I'm going to be okay. Like, I just got to do the reps, recover. With time, I'll be okay." And I think it's probably one of the better times you can have a brain injury is when you're younger, because then your brain is still, super flexible and can actually adapt to it. Um, and I think, like, I would have never imagined that that little kid was in the audience listening, and his mom was listening and seeing his reaction to listening to that speaking gig. So when you say everybody has a story worth sharing, even when you don't know who needs to hear it, and like, share it, because there might be that one person that comes up to you after the event that's like, "Thank you so much for doing this. I needed to hear this. I was really struggling with XYZ. Thank you." And that one person is what makes it worth it.
absolutely. If we can save one life, then we know we're doing a great job. I totally agree. I totally agree. So, what is the most powerful transformation for you, for yourself, that you've seen so far from the work that you do?
I would say it was with one of my friends, actually. And when she saw me kind of starting this business, getting people booked for TEDx talks, applying for them until they're accepted, um, she, in her head, she's like, "Oh, this is up here, like, this is TEDx speakers, this blah blah blah." She saw this huge gap between her and TEDx speakers. She invented the entire thing in her head, right? And I said, "Hey, her name's Faye." I said, "Hey, let me just help you out. If I can help you out, like, you have an idea in you." And she needed to see enough of my clients get accepted, and it worked for them, until she was finally like, "All right, like, I understand I'm just inventing limiting beliefs in my head, coming up with BS as to why I can't do this, and I'm not good enough, and blah blah blah, and this. I want to do this with you. Let's do this. Maybe it doesn't work, but at least I'll have clarity that it didn't work." And I think there was a lot of things simultaneously going on for her, growing her business. She's got like 14 employees now. At the time, I think she had six. Um, and she was just growing so much. And I think her stepping into that place of seeing herself as a leader, and then able to, that reframe of her own self belief, how that rippled throughout her entire business. I mean, they'll probably hit seven figures this year. And she's paying for education for her nephew, because her brother couldn't pay for education for her nephew anymore. Like, those kinds of things. Um, that was the one that I would see, I guess, most tactically, because we were friends. Like, we would spend
Right.
a lot of time together anyway. So I think that might be why I saw the biggest difference, because I could see her every day different, before versus after, most clearly, as opposed to one or two interactions with another client that I might have helped.
And when you say how you help someone and it's like a trickle effect, right?
Mm.
And it just spills over to their personal life, and then they start sharing their personal life, how they got affected from having this talk. It just, you can see how it's not just one person. It's not really just the person that's speaking that it affects them when they go and have this TED talk about their journey, but how it's just, multiplying. It affects many people in so many different ways. I'm sure that a lot of people come there with not a lot of confidence that it can happen. How do you build their confidence?
I explained to them how simple the process is, and I tell them a story of when I really wanted to give a TEDx talk in 2020. This was before I had done any one, and I just Googled it because I wanted to know that do step one, step two, step three, and then you can give a TEDx talk. Couldn't find it.
Mhm.
I just guessed, and I guessed 100% wrong. I took a year and a half writing a script for a TEDx talk, paid a scriptwriter a lot of money to help me write that thing. That was like my Mona Lisa. I put my heart and soul into that script. And then after a year and a half of writing it, I was like, okay, it's ready. It was the best it could ever be. And I sent it to my hometown TEDx organizer and I just celebrated thinking that, finally I'm going to give a TEDx talk. This is the dream. Go live your dreams, go shoot your shot. And I sent it to him and I just thought, finally, it's here. Week later, he emails me back, great speech, Ryan. This is not a TED talk, sorry. And I thought, ouch, okay. And I just kind of sat in that rejection for 6 months, and every insecurity I could have as a speaker, your ideas are crap. Nobody cares what you have to say. You'll never amount to anything. All that was going on in my head, right? And
Mhm.
then for whatever reason, at the end of that 6 months, I thought if I just knew what I did wrong, I could tweak it, fix it, and do it again, and maybe it'll work. So I thought, who might know what I did wrong? I thought TEDx speakers, because they've given a TED talk already. They would know. And I spoke to 7 of them, and there was one of those conversations that changed everything. It was with a 3 times TEDx speaker named Matt Stewart. Um, Credit to you, Matt. I wouldn't be where I am without you with that one conversation. A good example, the ripple effect, right? And he asked me one question. He said, Ryan, how many TEDx events do you think I applied to land these 3? And I said, well, 3, obviously. He said, no, Ryan, I applied to 300. Said, what? 300? And he said, yeah. I'm like, so you're telling me this is just a numbers game? He said, yeah, you could look at it like that. And it was when I understood that he explained there's so many TEDx events that will deny you because maybe they already have all of the spots for, a woman over the age of 40 to talk about wellness at that specific talk. But if you had applied 10 minutes earlier, the application would have come in before the other woman that took that spot and you would have been accepted. Like it can be such a simple reason you were rejected from that one or
Right.
denied. And so I understood, okay, I got to do the numbers. So for a lot of people, when they have that kind of realization, they go from, oh, I need to be a doctor, or PhD, I need to be selected and handpicked out of a crowd. No, you just do it until you get accepted. Sometimes it's 300, like with Matt. Sometimes it's 15, like it was with me. That's how many I applied to for the first 2. Um, the first person I helped, Justin Rogers, it was just a call. I told him, hey, this is a numbers game. Like, go for it. He applied to 1. He got accepted to that 1. So I think that's if you understand it's that, then I think it's
And it
pretty
has
simple the
nothing to
rest.
do with you. Like that's the point
Right.
you're making here, right? It doesn't have to do anything with your story or you. It's just the process. And I love that because you just open up the doors for everyone who's willing to share their story to say it can happen to you. It's, our thinking that gets in the way to say we're good enough, we're not good enough, this is not going to work for me. So it's that monkey voice that kind of kills the dream of getting on stage, basically, right? So I
Yeah.
love that story that you share how, you just have to know how the game is played, basically, to
Exactly.
understand it doesn't have anything to do with the individual person. I mean, that definitely gives them a different perspective on how to look at the whole process. Um, Tell us what goals you have for the future, because you got such a great life ahead of you. I just see it already.
Thank you. So right now, I gotta build the business is built. I gotta scale it up. That's what the process is for the remainder of this year, 2025. So I'm just here in my apartment locked in every day, gym, work, food. Like, it's kind of how it is. And I'm totally okay with that. Um, Next is going to be building an agency to get speakers booked and paid to speak, or a process, a system, because a lot of the people I work with, they want a TEDx talk, but that's just a vehicle to bring them from one place to another, point A to point B. They either want more speaking gigs, a higher speaking fee, something like that. And I want to build something to continue supporting them after they have given their TEDx talk. Um, and then after that, I'm going to be building some kind of tech product to help in-person events, and that's going to be a very big big thing that I'm working on. The business I am right now, and I have been doing it since 2023 to kind of get it to this point. And the idea I didn't have until last year, but 2024. But since then, I realized like this is the business I'm building right now leads to the next, which will lead to the next one, and then this business, the TEDx booking one, will lead to the speakers booking agency, and that speakers booking agency will function as the go-to-market strategy to build this tech platform, this tech product for in-person events to really up-level the in-person event experience, everything from speaking gigs to concerts to festivals to corporate events, all this kind of stuff. That's more the 10-year plan. So that's this is the train I'm going on for the next 10 years.
I love it because it's not something that it's in the books. It's something that you are inspired to do. You get these ideas and you're creating your own future, basically, right? And you're in control. You're disciplined, obviously, right? You're like, this is what I have to do. This is what I have to get done. And no matter what's going on outside of your door, you're remaining focused, diligent, and dedicated to this work because there's a bigger purpose of underlining how much it affects people's lives. And like kudos to you, buddy. And, such a young age, you found your calling. So how can what can you tell people, like, if they're just I think I said this, that they're afraid to really get on stage. They have this, I mean, really, public speaking, I believe it is on the top of the list that people are afraid of, other than jumping out of a plane. But how do you, I know it's a simple process, but you really have to cut through those beliefs that they have about getting on stage and telling their story. I mean, what just came to mind right now, I know that when I have guests on my show, and it's the first time they've done a show, I say, listen, it's not about you. I mean, I don't know if you say the same thing to them, but I say to them, it's not about you. Your story is going to impact so many that if you take your eyes off of you and you just speak, your story, it makes it a lot easier, right? What do you share with your clients on how to get over that fear of public speaking and going on stage?
Yeah, sure. So because that is such a huge market, there are so many people that are so scared of public speaking, just like I was at one point. Um,
Yeah.
I wanted to learn from the experts and the top people in the world just how simple it was. And that's why I actually built the Speaking to Expand podcast. The goal of that podcast is to give people that are afraid of speaking, that they're inventing this imaginary kind of ceiling in their head of why they can't go on stage, it's so scary, all this kind of stuff. The goal of that podcast is to get rid of that ceiling so that all those ideas can go and get spoken on and go onto the stage. That is literally the reason for that podcast. It's called Speaking to Expand Show. It's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, totally free. So it doesn't cost you anything besides your time to put in it. But there's a lot of episodes in there that really show you how simple it is. That hopefully, if you are afraid of speaking and you have a story, I think it's your ego getting in your way. And I think that listening to that podcast, hopefully that you'll find an episode in there, or listen to one person that I interview that can give you kind of the clarity you need of, oh, okay, well, that was that one piece I was looking for. Now that I realize I can do that, and the rest I can take care of. So that's what I would say about that, Giovanna.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's more like a self-initiative, right? That if they want it that bad, they do have to make a commitment to also do their homework and how it's done, how other people are doing it. If they really have an interest and a desire, I mean, obviously you're doing that to grow your business, right? When you get an idea or you're curious about something, you're going to go out there and try to find who's doing it, how are they doing it, what are they doing. Recently, you went to a big event with Russell Brunson. Can you talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Like, what did you
I
learn? What
actually,
did you take away from that?
yeah, and I love this because I spoke to Giovanna before the event, and I wasn't going to go to the event, and then my friend asked me that question because I didn't have the funds at the time. Business was, running tight margins, and um, he said, Ryan, this was the last, 10, this was the last funnel hacking live event. It was number 10. And I had been to the one before. There had been, 9 before it. And my friend asked Ryan, does the you in 10 years want to be the person that went to the last funnel hacking live event or didn't? And I was like, oh my gosh, he got me. Like, of course I want to be the person that went to it.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll go.
yeah.
And I ate it. I like put it on my credit card. And bought the ticket. And before I was going, I was like, Giovanna, why am I called here? What is going on here? What is it that is bringing me to this event? And she said, you have to get very clear on that. And I was. And what I realized I wanted to do, it wasn't a specific what, but it was a specific method. It was, I want to build quantum level relationships that have an exponential ripple effect when connected. Um, Whatever that ripple effect and exponential output and leverage may have been. And landed some amazing speakers that now able to work with, like Devon Brown, the MC of the event, Steve Harward, who's CEO and founder of Prime Corporate Services, some other amazing people that I got to be connected with and work with there. But it wasn't the one particular thing. It wasn't about the clients. It was really interesting. My dad had just started a nonprofit. He basically sends Starlinks to schools in Kenya to give them internet access. And he was having trouble with the fundraising and finding the funds, and then, getting more because they sent a few over and they got installed in the schools. But he was looking for kind of a guide to do that. And one of the speakers at this event, he collected an award for raising out. ClickFunnels donated $100,000 to him. He had opened 16 schools in Kenya, and I said, "Oh my gosh, like this guy and my dad's nonprofit, they're so perfectly aligned." And I realized I DM'd the speaker on Instagram after. I'd say, hey, just saw you speak. This is the X account, my dad's nonprofit. They're putting Starlinks in schools in Kenya. I see you're building schools in Kenya. I think it'd be really cool if you guys connect to see if you can do. He said, oh my gosh, we're literally looking for someone to put internet in all these schools. This would make an exponential difference in the schools that we have built in Kenya. Can you please make this happen? Here's the email to my assistant. I would love to talk to him. Generations of kids with internet access in Kenya. That is not an ROI that I could have told you, Giovanna, of this is what I want to get from the event. But that's the example of the quantum connection relationship that has an exponential ripple effect for the future, for however many people it touches. And that's the kind of relationship that I wanted to have at that funnel hacking live event, and getting really clear on that, not having any idea of the how, but it served, right? Like that,
Right.
that I remember I recorded a video and I think I sent it to you. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like this is, universe, quantum, source, God, call it whatever you want, like screaming in my face. This could not be more clear about what we're doing here.
And you
That,
see how you wanted a quantum leap, but
yeah.
you didn't really think about, what quantum leap it would be.
Mhm.
And it wasn't for you, it was a quantum leap for your dad, in essence.
Yeah.
And then the ripple effect of what your dad's going to do to impact the kids in Kenya in the schools. Like knowing that quantum leap is really touching the hearts of many, not just for Ryan to go and to the funnel, right? So I connect this to, the power of the human spirit. When you follow your heart and you are on that mission, on that, you have that alignment with source, God, the universe, whatever we want to call it, how impactful our lives can be and how we can affect others. And I commend you again for the work that you're doing, and how you put Ryan on the side at that moment. It wasn't about getting clients for Ryan and the TED Talk speakers. It was about impacting children that don't have internet. And now how much can they learn that they're going to have access to information that can bring them up to the next level and not, live in scarcity, right? What a beautiful story. What a beautiful story. So, your final words, what would you like to say how important it is to really be heard out there? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's kind of the first step of any business, any story. If you and I think this will be really really cool with how I say this. You hear a lot of times you hear the term thought leader. I want to be a thought leader, a thought leader. I don't like that term because a thought stays in your head, right, and stays in other people's heads, but it's not heard, right? It's a thought. Um, People have to hear your ideas, your thoughts, your voice, your stories, but that's what makes movement leaders. That's what gets people to hear something, empathize with it, decide to take action on it. That's what creates movements. And I think it's a very powerful thing to build movement leaders and community leaders, work with movement leaders and work with community leaders.
Yes.
But the first step to it is being heard. I remember I didn't post on social media for like 5, 6, 7 years because I didn't want to be heard. I wanted to be invisible, right? But once I could overcome that thing of taking out my phone, recording a video, and posting on Instagram, which seems like just such a stupid, simple thing to do. It's like it got over the thing that was keeping me from in my own way. It was
Yes.
myself, right? But being heard and putting that there, it's once you can authentically go on your social media and record something, and everybody that you've ever been connected with can see it, and it's like, wait, the world didn't end. Like they're still friends with me. People still want to do business with me. Wait, they actually know me more. Oh, this is kind of cool.
Beautiful.
I like this, right? And then you kind of just gets the snowball rolling from there.
Wonderful, wonderful. And we're coming to a close. I really want to thank you so much for opening up and again being authentic, sharing your work and really impacting the world. Thank you again for coming. Thank everyone for watching. And how can someone get in touch with you if they want to learn more on how to, go on TED Talks?
Sure. I have my Instagram is linked below my name there at ryan.w.brady. You can just send me a DM on Instagram. Just text me the word GT podcast. That way I know we're coming from this podcast of GT pod, and I'll know where you're coming from.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us. Until next time, this is Giovanna Chartavone, your host on Sparking Change with Gigi. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for joining me on Sparking Change with Gigi. I hope that our episode today has ignited a spark within you to create positive change in your own life and in the world around you. To learn more about how you can become a guest or supporter, head over to sparkingchangenow.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing, sharing, and leaving a review. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to me, and it helps me to continue producing content that sparks change in each of us and the world. You can find us on various platforms, including Google Play Store, Apple App Store, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Android TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to having you join me again next week on Sparking Change with Gigi.